we're live.
Hello, everyone. We are the Hookah Smiths. I'm the Lunch Sloth, and this is Wade on a Hookah. Today, we're going to be talking to you guys about traditional hookahs versus modern hookahs.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. If you could do us a quick favor, let us know if our audio sounds all right. We kept it the same from last week a little bit. I did modify it a little bit. I just want to make sure you can hear me and Alex at a respectable level. What's up?
Maybe they didn't even hear the intro.
No, it's definitely they definitely can hear something. Sounds.
Nah, you could, because I unmuted it and I can hear it.
All right. Do we sound level? Audio is good. Good. We're just gonna keep it like this thing, because this time you're not fucking screaming in my ear like last week.
I like that.
You like screaming in my ear? Or you like that you're not screaming in my ear?
The first one.
Oh, okay. All right. So first up, I'm smoking some pure Morangi. I'm using my Regal Thunder Slim Hose Alpaca Predator, 2 Prestige Jumbo Flats in the Provost on a, what is this boho that you sold me? Is this an Egerman? I think it's Egerman.
Yeah, I think so.
On an Egerman boho.
I'm smoking hookah.
Fucking potheads.
Nah, I'm smoking Lavu Mean Java. It's like 1/4, and the rest is Indian Kier from Trifecta, using 3 Cocoa Earth Flats, Phalian, lettuce, and I'm smoking out of my Naras using a Thunder Hose with a boho base as well.
I'm gonna try and change up my setup every week. I don't know about you, but try to have a different.
Me too. I need milk in the base.
Absolutely. I'm gonna do vodka next week.
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah. So this week we're going to talk a little bit about traditional hookahs versus modern hookahs. It seems like traditional hookahs don't seem to get as much love unless it's a Naras. New traditional hookahs like Shikas or KMs don't seem to get nearly as much love. So we just want to talk a little bit about what the pros and the cons are for both, what the real difference is between them, and what it matters to you as a consumer.
All right. So I guess I'll start with traditional since I'm smoking out of the traditional. Traditionals are typically made out of stainless steel or brass, and well, typically brass with a copper downstem or stainless steel downstem, and they're usually more restricted, I guess, in general, except for Shikas. That's probably the biggest exception is Shika.
Well, I think it depends, because if you're looking at old, like if you're talking Naras or Nauer, those are both restricted. So you're talking old school traditional.
Well, KM is also not super open, but they're not super open. They're like in the middle.
They were what brought open. They were the first pipes to have an quote unquote open draw, though. I wouldn't, compared to some of the draws now, they're not. But if you, in the grand scheme of things, they were the first ones to be wide. Like now, they're probably more of a moderate. It's still wide, but still more of a moderate draw. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. But when you consider what we have today,
right,
and what is considered wide, before that was wide, but now, like you said, it's more like, moderate in between.
Yeah,
draw.
I would still never call it restricted now, but I wouldn't call it the widest draw either.
Yeah, I'd say Shika is definitely the widest when it comes to traditional,
yes.
And then you have KM, which would be the second widest, and then everything else is a bit more restricted, like Elma's, like those Turkish, El Nefes.
And then Naras
and
I think Naras is probably the most restricted, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely.
So that can really be a pro or a con, depending on which one you're looking at. Traditional hookahs in general, the draw can, like we were talking about, just depend. But yeah, I think some of the other big pros, and I think the reason that people go towards traditional hookahs is really the designs more than anything. Because they've got the traditional feel. What's more or less what defines a traditional hookah is the aesthetics, the way it was made.
The fact that it was handcrafted?
Yeah, I mean, if there are videos Shika has on YouTube, if you look of them, a guy sitting there doing the hand etchings on every single one of them, and they're beautiful. They turn out super well. So if you like the traditional quote unquote hookah experience and you want to, they have more character, like Rob just said on YouTube, um, because they are pieces of art that someone has crafted. Whereas most modern pipes are just machined, and that's fine. But we'll talk about that when we get to machined pipes. What do you think? Some of the
One of the cons actually of traditional is also that they're handmade. They could
right,
have issues.
right. So when you look at things like handmade, there's such a wide spectrum where handmade products can go. Like you can have great, immaculate quality products. Like if we're looking at handmade products again, look at stone hookah bowls. I've seen very few of those that are messed up in any way because they're handmade. Um, but you also can have bowls that are completely messed up because they're handmade. Like I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but that is the thing that does happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, they do also. If they do end up coming out poorly, they either sell them at a discounted price or just not at all.
Right, right. Um, like Rob said, it's a double-edged sword. It's something that can be very much a make or break. But if you're sitting on the make side of things, more often than not, it ends up being such a huge pro. But yeah, that's something that I really like about traditional hookahs. Is just the amount of character that they have and the amount of effort and love that was put into them.
They're also typically more heavy.
Yes, well, I think that's more of what they're made out of. Because if you look at things like
Yeah.
the take the Sahara Smoke Executive, for example, is that do you consider that traditional or modern? Because that is
Well, that's made out. It's traditional. It's made out of cast. So I mean, some like Turkish are made out of
right.
cast. So I would still put that into the traditional category, even though it does have a nice long warranty, and it does have threadings. It's
Right.
still traditional in that sense. I'm gonna need one momento. I always forget to get water.
You're fine. Jose on Twitch said, "My last two Sheikah had problems." Well, I don't know what Sheikas you had, but I think anything V4 or newer, they offer a lifetime warranty on them. So you might have just had some weird edge cases with them, but I think in general, for a company to do something like that, they have to have a lot of faith into the product that they're selling. And I think Sheikah. I mean, the only problem I had was my V4. The V4 Sheikah, the hose ports were too wide, but that was something you could fix with a grommet. Barrett says, "What about the MIG Traddy?" The MIG Traddy is it's traditional. It's where the name comes from, but I don't know if it falls into more of a traditional category or not because of how new it is. And that's something that the executive falls under too, where it's kind of like halfway in between modern and traditional. It's modern trying to capture the benefits of traditional, more or less. What do you think about the MIG Traddy?
Well, from what I've seen, I would still put it in that pseudo modern category, even though it is supposed to be more of a traditional pipe.
Right.
Even though it's traditional in the sense of the materials that it's made out of, but it's not traditional in the sense that the design is not meant to be traditional. It's supposed to be modern design with like a traditional twist.
Right. So what to you defines traditional?
Um, I to for the most part, either cast or handmade
You think?
would be traditional to me.
So what's so you think if a pipe's cast or handmade, that's the main defining feature to you?
I mean, I don't think I could think of a pipe off the top of my head that wasn't made out of one of those two that I wouldn't call traditional.
Yeah, I can't think of any cast non-traditional pipes. Rob on YouTube says one of those neo-traditional pipes, and yeah, that's what I'd call them too, with the Sahara Smoke Executive and the MIG Traddy, right?
Yeah, I suppose so. It is that newer style, like I said, with a twist.
Yeah. What do you think the main cons are to a traditional pipe?
The biggest con I can see is that it could have sealing problems, or the designs are just poorly etched. Like that does happen with Cam or even Sheikah sometimes.
Right, and that goes back to what we were talking about with them being handmade. Is it can be a double-edged sword where you can get the bad side of it, the inconsistent. The inconsistency is really only the biggest con I'd say to traditional hookahs, right?
Yeah, I couldn't think of like another necessary con. Like that's basically the biggest con you could think of. But even then, that's like one out of however many. It's not like a common thing.
Yeah, and like with like I was saying with Sheikahs, they've got the lifetime warranty, so they obviously are going to back their product if they're fucked up. But you know, I think they have enough faith that they're more non fucked up than fucked up.
Yeah, I've seen way less people say that they have a problem with their Sheikah than not. But like KM have definitely had their problems at some point in the
Right.
years where people were like, yeah, they post on Reddit and they're saying, yeah, my pipe has this problem, there's air leaks or whatever.
Yeah, and like,
And you can contact them, but it's sometimes hard to get into contact with
well,
those that
the
company,
thing,
but not
yeah,
Sheikah.
that's what I was gonna say with KM. I've literally never heard of anyone contacting them and it working
I
out.
mean, you contact the company you bought
Yeah,
it
that's
from,
generally how it goes.
and then you send it back, and then they might send it back.
Yeah, but then that's I don't know. Would you rather rely on a company you bought it from or the company that made it? So I guess that's kind of personal preference more than anything. I think the
Yeah,
only other real downside to traditional pipes can be aesthetics, and that's really just personal preference more than anything, right?
yeah. With that modern style, you get that the visual appeal is different, but it's still obviously very visually appealing depending on the pipe you're looking at.
Right, but it's just very. I mean, you compare my Matte Pear and my Sheikah Farouk; they're two completely different aesthetically.
And that just goes into like the history of hookah, even in that sense. Like, do you want something that reminds you of, I don't know, your country or something like that, or do you
The
want something
origins
that
of hookah,
just
even.
looks, yeah, the origins.
Yeah. I think the other thing. So where do with a lot of the new modern pipes, you see fancy things being implemented, like invisible purges, multi hose designs, and that can be, I guess, a technical con of the traditional aspect is that a lot of traditional companies aren't like doing a ton to innovate. They're more or less like when it comes to things like Sheikah or KM, they're just trying to perfect the experience, if that makes sense. They're trying to
Yeah,
make the
definitely.
best kind of traditional experience you have. Like when you look at Sheikah, they've got some new stuff in the works that they're just trying. They're not trying to reinvent the wheel. They're just trying to make the wheel perfect, and that's
Yeah, perfectly round.
right, exactly. And so, do you think that's a con? Do you think that's something that traditional companies will have to change over time?
Um, I feel like, if you have something that's good going for them, they don't see a need to change in that sense. Like, the traditional hookahs are basically the aesthetic of the traditional hookah. It's not trying to add new things, as we said. It's basically we have what we have here, and we're trying to make it as beautiful and functional as possible with what we have available. But with newer pipes, they're trying to add new things and stuff like that. And you can't really add those types of things to a more traditional pipe, I feel, without ruining something else. Like you're gonna have, it's a lot of trial and error in that sense, because the pipe is only going to be able to do so much. It's made out of these different materials.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to innovate if you're machining a pipe because you've got
Yeah,
it's a lot faster essentially. That's the biggest thing, and manufacturing is a lot. It's just easier to manufacture something if you're writing. If you're literally designing something on AutoCAD or something like that to make a pipe. It's a lot easier to implement changes on that than versus like trying to tell someone who's making a pipe, hey, let's just make the purge not stick out and still make it work. Because a lot of that's going into the internals of the pipe and how to make it work and stuff like that.
exactly. Like I said, it's going to be a lot of trial and error just to get something to work properly in a more traditional
Right.
pipe, and they're going for more of that aesthetic instead of trying to reinvent the wheel.
So do you think that's something that, as hookah goes on, do you think there will always be a traditional market?
I mean, people still buy them. I still see people posting tons of photos with their traditional pipes. I don't think that it's gotten necessary. It's not necessarily that traditional hookahs have become less popular. they're still quite popular, and there's people that like them for what they are.
Right.
But a lot of the newer people that are coming into the market like that traditional. Don't actually, sorry. They like that modern pipe design and all of the new features that come along with it.
Right. It's like when I when you what do you think about the Zara Spate? That's not a traditional pipe in any way, but that's a beginner pipe, and that's where Sheikah and KM had the market cornered for the longest time. Was a good beginner pipe? You know what I mean? And so
Yeah,
it's interesting.
it's in the same category of price point.
Right, and so it was interesting to see a modern pipe come in and try to capitalize it, and they did it very well. I think the machining aspect had a lot of appeal to people, although that hype definitely died off after like a few months with the Spade anyway. Like you don't see people
Yeah.
now just like, hey, I want to buy a Spade, but I still do see people buying Sheikahs, like the Electro models and stuff, because they want a good beginner pipe. You know what I mean?
I thought of another pro when it comes to traditional hookahs.
Yeah.
So price point, a lot of hookahs are on the lower aspect of price point. Modern hookahs definitely have that higher price point in general, where unless you're getting something very extremely intricately designed
Right.
or a design that's newer instead of like if you get a Kamanja, most traditional companies have a Kamanja or like a tri-metal or things like that, and those are at the lower price points,
Right.
and it's always something that's going to function well.
Yeah, and even Chica with the Electro models, they're not trying to do anything fancy. They're trying to make a very good, basic, traditional pipe and sell it well.
I think with those pipes in specific, that's them trying to add a slightly more modern appeal to it because they have the different colors and stuff.
Right. They're trying to capitalize on some of that younger audience who wants the modern aesthetic with the traditional price point almost. Rob said on YouTube, in America it will dwindle, but there will always be a large portion of the world who uses them. So I think that raises a good question. Where I don't know enough about the market outside of the stuff we see on communities like Facebook and Reddit and stuff. So what do you think the market is for what do you think the market is like in parts of the world like the Middle East? Do you think they still want the traditional vibe, or do you think they're going more modern?
See, that's a good question. From what I've seen, from most pictures, at the furthest they go to modern style pipes, at least from what I've seen what people
Yeah.
sell, is like Chinese garbage, really.
That's fair, but I don't really
Yeah,
constitute that as anything worth talking about. But then
exactly. It's not worth mentioning.
you do see things like Shisha Bucks do pretty well. Like they have a vendor in Dubai that sells them. They do actually pretty well, all things considering. So it makes me wonder if it's the exposure that more modern pipes have there that makes traditional pipes sell better in those areas, or if it's the actual wants and desires of the people of that area to why they're still using traditional pipes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, if modern pipes are slowly more introduced to that area, they'll probably become more popular,
Right.
and the older crowd is always probably going to be using traditional.
Right.
So, and then also on top of that, the older crowd, the people that older crowd is their kids are probably going to continue using modern pipe or traditional pipes, and that will also continue on to traditional pipe usage in general.
Do you think at some point when say we're looking 20 years down the line and our kids are smoking, what would you give your kid for their first pipe when they're 18?
Well, he's not taking my Nars, that's for sure.
I would hope not. He's not taking my B2,
Oh.
that's for damn sure.
Those are forever.
Right.
I mean, if traditional pipes are still very easily accessible and the price point will inevitably probably get slightly lowered, maybe something like that. It's just the roots, I want them, if they do want to do that, then I would want them to use that as a first pipe. You can always get something else down the line,
Right.
but that's basically where it came from.
Yeah, I think if I'm sending my kid to college in 20 or 30 years, whenever the fuck that is, they'll probably send them with a Sheikah or something like maybe even a KM.
A chic.
I'll probably, if my KM cafe is still around, sitting over there, which should be, I'll just send them with that. Tell them to have a good time. You can have my old fucking Namor hose as well.
You can have my KM hose. I don't want that.
I don't. Even, I threw my fucking KM hoses away. I don't.
I have one.
Why? Why?
Because I got it with my Naras.
By a Naris.
I think it's a double apple hose.
Oh well, that's lit then. That's worth. My double apple hose is washable, but I just don't wash it. Do you think that traditional pipes are better for ghosting? Like, say you want to dedicate a pipe, do you think dedicating a brass or copper downstem is better than trying to ghost something like a stainless steel downstem?
Well, I feel like what modern companies in general are trying to do is make it so your hookah doesn't
Right.
ghost. So that's kind of the opposite of what they're trying to do.
Right.
Traditional pipes, they have that copper or that specific stainless steel that does stain, and that's just the way it is. So I feel like that would be a better opportunity if you're looking for something to stain continuously use for a mint or a double apple.
Yeah, I think brass and copper downstems retain flavor better. That's why you have to clean them so vigorously, is because they can oxidize and retain flavor very well, but that's not really a pro if you're going to use it for an everyday pipe, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely find myself either smoking the same flavor or having to clean my hookah more often.
Yeah.
And if I want to switch it around.
Yeah, absolutely. Whereas you can get away with maybe not doing that if you had something like a Regal or she's a fucking Starbuzz, I guess. Just looking at the first pipe popped into head.
Oh, another pro/con of traditional pipes is the con side is you have to polish them if you want to keep them nice.
Yeah.
The pro is once you polish it, it looks amazing.
Yeah, Rob literally just said that in on YouTube.
Oh.
Con also copper upkeep. Yeah, the upkeep is a lot higher.
To both.
Is a lot higher on. But the thing is, at a certain point you got to think about things like this. I see where you're coming with a pro. It can look. You can make a copper or brass pipe look super nice if you put the effort into it. But the con is you also have to do that. Whereas if I'm looking at my Regal, what can I do to make my Regal look nicer than it is in its current state? Do I polish the wood?
I suppose if you wanted to make it more shiny.
But that's like the only thing you can do. Whereas you can really make a huge difference when it comes to visuals when you're thinking about polishing a brass or copper pipe.
Yeah, so it's an in-betweener. It depends how you're able to maintain your pipe.
Yeah, it just depends on the individual. Like Rob's a great example of that. He takes great care of his pipes and he makes them really shine and look great because he takes care of them. But if someone's gonna be like a lot of my friends are lazy as fuck, I know they wouldn't keep up with a brass or copper pipe. So for them, I'd probably just tell them to get like a Regal or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, something like that, or like a shisha box.
Yeah.
Something that you don't really have to clean,
exactly.
besides like the base.
Yeah, because it's like, yeah, but I guess it also depends if someone wants, if that's something that matters to someone, because that's not, if someone just wants a pipe that smokes well, they might not even care how it looks, you know what I mean?
Yeah, depends on the user.
Yeah, like my Executive, for example, I have used the shit out of that pipe. I polished it like once, and I don't know if I'll ever polish it again because it's a lot of work and I'm lazy.
Yeah, also getting into those crevices can be annoying as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But that applies to any pipe. I mean, polishing your Naras would probably be a pain in the ass.
Yeah, there's some sharp corners.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we've talked about enough about traditional hookahs. What do you think some of the pros are for modern hookahs?
Sorry, couldn't hear you over the pipe.
You're good. We've talked about traditional pipes enough. What do you think are some of the pros to modern hookahs?
Pros is innovation. It's a different aesthetic. The aesthetic can change. It can vary a lot.
Yeah, I mean things like
terms
shisha
of
bucks.
modern.
You can go anywhere from shisha bucks to matte pear to fucking B2. I mean, there's so
Big. There's all different.
Yeah.
Very different.
Yeah, the aesthetics go into a whole different ball game when it comes to that. Whereas, while traditional have a lot of variation, when you look at something like the Sheikah Greyjoy, for example, very different pipe than say a KM Kamanja, but still, that aesthetic is going to be similar in a way. If that makes sense.
For like when it comes to the aesthetic of modern pipes, it kind of allows you to stick out a bit more because you have all these different pipe options and visuals that your pipe is just going to be probably different than your friend's pipe.
Right.
Rob said Um, Modern is cleaning all of those goddamn pieces, and sometimes overkill when it comes to the design as well. That's true. There's a lot of pieces, and if you lose them or need to replace them, they can be a bit of a hassle to have to get a new piece. And the designs can be overkill depending on the pipe, but I feel like a lot of them aren't too overkill. But yeah, when it comes to getting all those little pieces,
I think that
you have to make sure you keep track of all of
I think
those.
that's something that could be another thing that's like a pro and a con, because it's like you can get in there and make sure your pipe is super clean, but also you have to get in there and make sure your pipe is super clean if you want it to be clean. It's a lot. Like when I take apart my matte pair, it takes me like a solid 2 full minutes of just unscrewing, taking it apart, unscrewing the purge ball, unscrewing the downstem, unscrewing the diffuser, unscrewing the stem, unscrewing the tray, taking the tray off, taking the fucking stem cover off. There's a lot that goes into cleaning that versus, oh, let me take my Sheikah off. And maybe I'll take the purge valve off and clean it.
But yeah, but there's also pros to that as
Yeah.
well. Because if your pipe can break down into a lot of smaller pieces, it makes travel much easier in comparison to a traditional pipe.
Yeah. I mean, you saw when I came down to visit you. It's a lot easier to take apart my B2 and put it in a bag than, oh, here, let me just wheel this giant executive in.
Yeah.
Very.
You have to strap that into your car.
Yes, and I did.
That's what I did when I moved up here. I had to strap in my Regal into a car seat and then hope it doesn't tip over because that's scary.
Yeah, that post was still it's still on like the top 20 posts on Reddit, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I moved over here, I had to move like 16 pipes. It took me like 3 trips of just strapping in as many as I could, trying to just take them apart and like lay different things on top of each other. It was a pain in the ass. I think that took longer than the rest of the moving. What do you think some of the other pros are for modern pipes?
Um, if you're into that wider draw, the majority of them have that more wide draw.
Yeah, I can't think of any modern pipes that have a restricted draw or any type of restriction. Like there aren't really any modern pipes that are out here like, yo, dude, check out this brand new MIG that is the most restricted pipe you'll ever find.
Yeah, it's mostly like it's more open. It's either as open or more open than a KM.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think KM is like it's at the standard for what wide the bare minimum is at this point. Like I mean, my Regal is wide as fuck. My B2 is pretty
Yeah.
wide. My Matt Perry not quite as wide, but it's still wide. I mean, even the
That
like the Starbuzz is probably the most restricted modern pipe out there, right?
probably, but that also brings up another pro because if the pipes are wide, that means you have the option to restrict it with either a hose or a bowl,
Right.
or even your pack.
Yeah.
When you have a traditional pipe, you're stuck with what you have, and it can only get more restricted, which could be worse for you.
Right. Like that's why I'm using the Thunder Slim Hose. I generally don't like my Regal with the I don't like the default draw on the Regal. Like I don't like using it with like my Timber Hose. Like I'll use it, but I feel like I'm getting a lot of flavor loss because of how wide it is. So I love it with my Thunder Slim Hose though, because it just feels like the perfect medium where I'm like canceling out the wideness of the draw with the more restricted hose. So that was something I talked about when I did my B2 review. Is I liked how it never felt airy, but if I felt like it ever became airy, I could change it because it's so wide. I can only go down. I can't make a restricted pipe like a Naris. It is a lot harder to make that less restricted. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and another pro. Well, at first I wanted to tell a very small story. Rob mentioned that he has a mini beast that will travel well in a backpack, but it's much easier to just have the option available to have modern pipe that breaks down to a bunch of little pieces. So before modern pipes became so widely available, I had a large KM and I had a mini beast. And I bought the mini beast strictly so I could either use it on a desk, or B, for travel. And now I have just so many more options if I want to bring something with me. Like I could take my Shisha Bucks Micro, or I could bring even the mini. Like I can bring that with me, and it's pretty easy to transport.
Right.
And also, I wanted to. What was I gonna say? There was another thing I wanted to mention. Well, now it died. But when I get to it, when it comes back, I will mention it.
All right. We should answer King Monkey's question as well. He's been waiting a little bit. He said, I have a question regarding HMDs Using a Provost or Lotus to help prevent coals blacking out, I use titaniums. So I'm assuming you're talking about versus using an HMD versus just using coals on foil. Um, to a certain extent, it will. Let me see if I can show you my Provost right now and try not to drop it on my fucking keyboard.
Alright. Well, you get that. I also think he might or might not be talking about the difference between the two, which one's going to be better for that coal blacking.
Here's my Provost. If you look, I got 2 coals on the bottom. It's still blacking out a little bit, but it's not like full on blacking out. You can go ahead and keep talking about what you were talking about, though.
Oh, well, I thought maybe he was potentially talking about either the Provost or Lotus, which could be better in terms of not having them black out when it comes to using those titanium coals.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely true. I think in that case, I mean, it really just, I don't know. I never have any really issues with either. I think if you're talking OG Provost and or OG Lotus, then the Provost has less issues with coals blacking out. But that's just me.
Oh, another con that I came up with is for modern pipes is that if you have all of these pieces and there's all these different threadings, unless you have a very high quality, thick, beefy threading pipe, then they could either what's it called? What's it called when the threading rips?
Cross threading.
Yeah, and that kind of destroys it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it can really destroy a pipe. But I feel like most modern companies, I've never, all the ones that I have that have threadings, I haven't had any that I was like scared with them. Like B2's got very beefy threadings, Matt Perry's very clean. The Initiate's threadings I worry about, but I don't use that pipe enough to say. Maybe Rob on YouTube can give some more input on that because he loves his Initiate. Banana Jones on Twitch says, also on the subject, I feel like that side that is towards the bowl ends up blacking out a lot. This is using the Provost, is using titanium flats though. God, I haven't used titanium flats in a hot minute.
Yeah, I haven't used them in a long time either. Except I used the cubes a few times, but that's just because my friend gave me a couple.
Yeah, but the side that is always towards the bowl, always... Yeah, and I think the side that's always facing towards the bowl in any scenario is going to black out a little bit. That's just because that's going to have the least amount of airflow, regardless of what kind of setup you're using.
Yeah.
So they always black
Typically,
out.
I flip them halfway.
Right. Rob said, all golden here with mine. He's talking about his Initiate. He says he still uses it a few times a week. So yeah, I mean, that's what I was talking about with modern pipes. The threading's generally pretty solid. No complaints for the most part. So I don't know. I can't think of a single modern pipe I have that like I would ever worry about the threadings are. But I get what you're saying. It definitely could be a con if it broke. Like it would be a very hard thing to fix.
I mean, you probably wouldn't be able to even fix
Right,
it.
Yeah.
I had a problem with a previous Regal back when they were having some slight issues with like a single batch, and I had to send it back in to get another one.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at least you have that opportunity to get another one.
The Sahara Assassin, that's a great example of a con with the threading. The threading on that was pretty dog shit, for lack of better words. Sorry, Sahara Smoke, but that pipe was bad.
That's that little one, right?
Yeah.
It's like black.
Yeah, it was like, I felt like Sahara Smoke was like 2 steps forwards with the Initiate, then 1 step back with the Assassin, where like it was better than the majority of their Chinese pipes, but it was still not great. And they were I feel like it was really trying hard to compete with the things like the Zara Spade. I think that's another general con with modern pipes is price point. They're generally expensive. Like you look,
Quite.
The lowest, I mean, aside from things like edge cases like the Spade, things like Regals are the bare minimum you're gonna pay is $200 for a stem tray. So you're generally
a new pipe that's coming out. What's it called again? I've been talking to him for a while, and he's been showing me a lot of what he's been doing. He's actually making a pipe. I believe it's only going to be like 150-ish. It's the versatile hookah. So basically, it's a smaller sized hookah that allows you to be very versatile
Mm-hmm.
with it, as the name states. You can change the heart. You can change
Oh
like
yeah,
how you can change the trays. You have a lot of tray options, and you can change the heart. It has like this sleeve that you put on, which I think is
yeah,
pretty
you
cool.
showed me a picture of that.
Just
Um,
yeah, there's most of them are going to be quite expensive, but there are some rare cases where they're going to be a bit cheaper. But the more expensive ones usually are made out of thicker materials, and they're going to last you longer.
yeah, absolutely. Rob says another con is the paint. Looking at you, Spade and Assassin. And yeah, I think when it comes to quality of pipes like that at the lower end, you're gonna have issues with paint and stuff like that, just because you gotta cut costs somewhere to get a pipe that cheap, essentially.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some cut corners somewhere.
And I guess if it has to be somewhere, I guess maybe the paint. I don't know where I'd want to cut corners, but maybe that's the best place to do it. I can't say because I've never manufactured a pipe, but I think that's a general pro is that the overall build quality of most modern pipes is solid. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, typically.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be, of course, a few outliers. You can't. It's hard to generalize that statement, but
Yeah, there's just so many.
yeah, so many. I feel like I see a different one every week. Fucking Travis just picks up like
Kind of.
he picks up like a new pipe every other week. And I'm like, God damn, I've never even heard of these pipes. What do you?
Yeah, there's just so many pipes coming out of like Russia and Europe in general.
Yeah. When do you think we're gonna start seeing more innovation in the United States hookah market? Like as far as modern pipes go, because really the U.S. is what started it with Regal and Starbuzz. That's where the
Uh,
modern movement started, for lack of a better word. I mean, you think about what came before that, you could get a KM. That was basically what everyone
yeah,
had.
that's true. Because those were definitely the first touch of modern pipes we've seen in
Right.
America. They've been out for a while. Um, I think the last innovative, like really innovative pipe we've seen in America is the B2, probably.
Yeah, the B2, and it was weird because that was such a leap and a bound above. I don't know, it's personal preference, but I think it was a huge jump from Regal to that. You know what I mean? That's not to say Regals are bad pipes. It's just a very drastic jump in build
Yeah,
quality
big change.
and style. And then, I mean, I guess you could say Shisha Bucks, they're
Yeah,
Canadian.
but they're Canada.
Yeah, but still, NA hookah.
Rob said, I think the FDA might halt that, but really, who knows?
I think the problem.
I mean, they
I think
tried.
the problem with the FDA stuff is no one knows what's going on with that. Like, we thought that new flavors were going to be halted completely. That's why, like, I remember. Do you remember the week of the FDA stuff? There were a ton of companies that were just like, "Yeah, here are all these new flavors that are coming out. They'll exist whenever, but it's a thing that exists, and we're gonna sell it because FDA regulations." Um, and then we've got like Fumari just came out with a new flavor. Trifecta's dropping new flavors every other month. We're still getting new flavors in the U.S. without really any like halting on that. So I think when it comes to the FDA stuff, it just like doesn't like it hasn't made a big difference. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, not yet, anyways.
yeah, and that was 2 years ago. So when will it make a difference? You know?
Could be bad. Optimus Prime said, probably already asked, but what is your uh, choice of traditional pipe? Same question for modern pipe. It actually has not been asked yet. And for me, currently, my favorite traditional pipe is my Naras, because I've been using that for about 2 months now since I got it. I actually haven't used a single other pipe since I got it.
Right.
And before that, it was either going to be probably Sheikah, and if I had to pick a third option, definitely KM, because those are still good quality pipes for the money.
No.
And for modern pipe, I don't really own too many. I have my
Shisha Bucks.
Shisha Bucks. I've had a few of those, and I think those are good. And I have my Starbuzz Hookah, and I know Wade doesn't really like it that much, but I think it's a great pipe.
Well, you have an early Starbuzz. Those were great. Anything.
Yeah, I have a really early serial Starbuzz.
Yeah, the early Starbucks were great. If I had one of those, I'd probably agree with you. But the one I have, and it seems like anything after like 2015, just the quality dropped immensely. So I have a hard time recommending those. They smoke well. I really like how they smoke. But that's about it. Um, as far as traditional pipes, I usually just go to Sheikah. That's my go-to. Like I had a Sheikah Skyrim for a while that I gave to some friends, and that was like perfect. It was such a great draw. It was like a nice height. It smoked well. I love that pipe. But I was happy it went to a home where it would get more use. So I would still say Sheikah. As far as modern pipes, I rotate between my B2 and my matte pair for the most part. But if I had to pick one, I'm gonna go B2 every time. Um, I still use my other ones, like I'm using my Regal right now, for example. So I keep looking this way. That's where my pipes are. Um, I still use Shisha Bucks once in a while. But yeah, those are Hookah, Zara. I use those, but B2 is usually what I'm gonna go for if I had to pick one. As far as modern pipes,
If I had a B2, I'd definitely pick the
if I had
B2.
a Naris, I'd probably pick a Naris. But
Yeah, I just don't have it.
so this is kind of off topic, but also not. Do you think Naras will ever go away as being the quintessential collector's piece?
Uh, as long as there's people that want to purchase them, such as myself and maybe even you in the
Oh, I'm
future,
definitely gonna get
I
one.
don't think they will. The price is quite high at this point. Like people are selling them for up to $400 for like a swirl or a
Right.
crosshatch, and there's a bunch of other models that sell for a bit cheaper. They're just much harder to
I
find.
mean, you look at like going back to Travis. He got that fucking. Did you see that black marble Naras he got?
Yeah,
And that's like
that one
that's
is
at
quite
least
expensive.
$1,000 pipe. You know? Do you think?
If he's lucky, he got it for like 600. My friend
Yeah.
Jay sold his. He sold his to someone in Brazil, and Brazil is actually the people that like to buy them the most, I
Really?
believe.
Well,
Yeah,
their hookah,
Brazilians love
their hookah
Mars.
scene's insane.
Their hookah scene is incredible. Not always in terms of quality, but in terms of innovation. But
Popularity,
anyways,
good.
he sold his for 900. So that's pretty crazy to me. I could never consider buying a hookah for that much money. But if they have money like that to spend, then good on them.
Well, do you think so? I mean, you look at modern pipes, like take the Regal Diamond Woods or the B2 Precious Cut, for example. Those are like $600 pipes. Do you think those at some point will end up being worth the same, like being $1,000 pipes?
Um, well, if they are able to keep up like they're supposed to, like if the threading are always going to be that
Right.
good and the quality isn't going to
Diminish.
get any worse in terms of those pipes, then they could quite as well be that expensive hookah that they are now in the future.
But say B2 and Regal go away. Would you say, like Naras did, obviously? Do you think 10, 20 years down the line, someone's gonna be like, "Yo, that Precious Cut is a $2,000 pipe"?
It very well could be. It depends. It depends how people value them, because a company like NARS, they were very popular back in the day, and they made tons of pipes, and a lot of them just seem to disappear. So because they become so much harder to get, they just become popular just by association to that. Like they're so hard to find that people just seem to want it sometimes strictly for that purpose.
Well, do you think the rareness is why people want them, or do you think it's because they're well-made
Well,
pipes? And
well, they are well made
right,
pipes.
but is that why people want them?
So,
Because if you want a well-made pipe, you can buy any well-made pipe.
well, when it comes to just traditional hookahs, they offered something at the time that you couldn't get in traditional hookahs in the earlier 2000s. Like the designs were unparalleled. Like they were not touched in terms of design, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's just something that they'll always have. And even if someone tries to copy it, like Cam has a very similar pipe to the crosshatch, it's just not the same.
Right.
They have such beautiful, perfect, intricate designings, and the pipe is just made so well. So to make them not as popular, someone would have to make a hookah that is equally as good. But just the fact that the company the company as a whole, is Nara's. Like that company is just like when you think of Nara's, you think, wow, that's a nice pipe.
Yeah. I mean, if I want, it's like I think it's in a sense it's owning a piece of hookah history. You're owning one of the earliest quality pipes. That's still a great pipe.
Exactly.
So I don't know. I'd be interested to see in the future where traditional goes. I mean, like even now you see people like on r/hookah trade, for example. You see people like, yo, if you've got a first gen Regal, I want to buy that. Is that because it's
Yeah,
is
definitely.
that because
Specifically, they
right,
want
they want
that.
the first gen. Is that because it's a good pipe or is that because it's a rare pipe? Because honestly, first gen
Well,
Regals weren't that great. They had some issues with like wear and tear, but they also were rare.
they they excelled at some specific things, I suppose, when it came to build quality that they don't have today. So you're sacrificing different things for different things that you're gaining.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say those sacrifices are warranting like the extra price point. Like I wouldn't want to spend like say I'm just looking to buy a pipe. If I had the option between a V3 or a V2 Regal, why would I pick a V2 if I'm gonna have a harder bowl board to manage, and the fact that it might be able to rust in the middle, whereas I can get a V3 and I'm not gonna have those issues. So I think it's definitely when you think of Regal, it's such a popular company. I think the V1s are so popular, they're so sought after just because of how rare they are.
It's they're also like they're different in the sense that the visuals are seemingly the same, but they're just not like on the older Regals because I've smoked out of the V1
Right.
back in the day. They're just different. Like they're made out of the same materials, but the way they either finished it or something like that, they're different.
Right. We've got a few comments to catch up on. Rob said,
Yeah, I'm
absolutely,
flipping.
absolutely. I'm sure we'll see that 10 years from now. Even Starbucks and the executive. Rob, I will be very sad if my Starbucks pipe is worth more money than it is now because it is a piece of shit. His
Yo, yo, yo.
his
Mine, mine
Starbucks
though.
will be worth money. I think the first gen Starbucks will definitely be worth some money at some point.
It's a
Afrikid
very good
says,
point.
"Well, hello there. What's up, Keith? How you doing, buddy?" Um, and Darsh on YouTube says, "Do wooden hookahs ghost?" Sorry, OP, bored at work. You're totally fine, dude. That's what we're here for. Wooden hookahs. There aren't any hookahs that have a wood downstem, and that's what you got to think about when it comes to ghosting. So when I look at my Regal, it's got stainless steel downstem. My Hookah, it's got a stainless steel downstem. Those won't ghost any more than any other stainless steel downstem. So as long as you clean them well, they'll be fine.
Yeah, it can't ghost. Well, the thing is, I think what he's thinking is that the pipe itself is made out of wood on the internals, as you
Right.
said,
That's what I'm
and that's
saying.
just not the case. It's just the outer shell.
Yeah, it's just aesthetics. There's no actual like, if there was a wooden downstem, it would ghost like a motherfucker. Uh,
Oh yeah, it would.
have you ever smoked out of a wooden bowl?
Hookah John at one point had wooden
Really?
bowls, and they did not sell very well.
I
But
would buy one just for the hell
no,
of it.
it's beautiful looking. I wonder if I could find it.
Rob actually says
I'm gonna try and look for that real
Rob
quick.
said Madeira is like the only raid I can think of that has a wooden downstem, being its bamboo, but I'm sure that thing ghosts. Yeah, there's no way it doesn't ghost. I can't think of any scenario in which a wooden downstem wouldn't ghost. That just sounds stupid. Um,
Let's see if I can find this.
yeah, just screen share if you do.
I found it. All right, I'll screen share, but the image is kind of small. Oh wait, if I can find the name, I could probably find a bigger photo. Continue.
Right. All right. Yeah, I think when it comes down to at the end of the day, when it comes to traditional versus modern, it all boils down to preference. Just like anything in hookah, um, I think traditional will always have a place in the current market and in any market because people will always have nostalgia, and nostalgia sells, even if it's not the best. Like I can't think of a traditional pipe that'll outperform a B2 or a modern pipe, but in those scenarios, what are you looking at? Like they're not going to be you can't they're apples and oranges. You can't compare them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're definitely different strokes for different
Yeah,
folks.
and it's so hard to compare them.
I found it, by the way.
All right, you can just screen share.
So here it is.
Yeah, yeah,
It just didn't have the same heating It had a heating issue, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, heating that bowl is like impossible, realistically.
All right, back to camera.
All right. Optimus Prime on YouTube says, "Would you choose a traditional pipe or a modern pipe for your daily hookah?" Well, you're using a traditional pipe, aren't you?
And I have been for 2 months. And typically you smoke out of a modern pipe.
Yeah, I just rotate more towards them because I'm lazy and I don't like the upkeep. That said, I still use like my KM tri-metal that I bought off of you. I use for double apple. I still use that once in a while. So it's all just personal preference. I generally lean more towards modern pipes, but that's just me. I like them. I like the features.
It kind of just depends on what you already have in your rotation.
Yeah.
Like, I have 2 traditional and 3 modern, but this is the pipe that I keep going back to currently.
Yeah, and I mean I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You don't need to count.
I'm looking at them. 6. 6 traditional and more.
24 modern.
It's like 14. But I just go more towards my modern. Like, it's not that I dislike my. I think if I had a different traditional, I might use it more. Like my Shikas are just massive. Like I have the Farouk is like 4 fucking feet tall, at least 3 feet tall, and I just it's a challenge to clean that thing. So I don't like to use taller pipes that often. But yeah, that's just what I rotate towards.
All right. So if people have any last minute questions, we should definitely talk about that for the next 10 minutes or so. I feel like we covered most of the bases for traditional versus modern.
Can't think of much more I'm going to talk about with them. Oh, one more question I have when it comes to that I wanted to talk to you about. While we're waiting for any questions you have, drop those in the comments, of course, and any recommendations. But one more thing to talk about while we get those. Do you think that traditional pipes have anything that they need to improve on?
Traditional pipes? Well, Sheikah's been doing it big. I mean, I don't think that they're the biggest, well, in America, maybe. Well, KM and Sheikah. I don't think they necessarily need to do anything better. Maybe more marketing.
Yeah, I think you can definitely use some more marketing. But that's a different topic. I think KMs have a lot of room to improve upon. Their pipes themselves are fine, but then they sell it with a shitty hose and a shitty bowl. So I think
Rob said the welds.
Yeah, the welds could be better, especially on KMs and stuff. I mean, he was talking earlier about how JB welds have saved his pipes for years. I don't think that's something you want to fuck with, and I think that's why a lot of people are straying away from traditional pipes and leaning towards modern pipes. Because I'm never gonna have to weld my Regal. I really fucking hope not, anyway.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to. That's the whole point of that modern pipe.
Yeah.
It's like a new car versus an old car. Like, the old car is going to work, but the newer car is going to have less problems.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I look at someone like my dad who collects old cars. He loves the upkeep on them. So he just likes working on cars. He likes keeping up with them. But he knows he has to do that when he's buying them. Whereas, look at other people buying new fancy cars. They're not going to have to fuck with them as much, you know? So it all just comes down to preference, what you like. Some people like that classic feel of maintaining something and keeping up with it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Optimus Prime said, ideal height for a hookah based on your preference. I think anything above 33 is typically the max that I'd want to own. I don't think I own anything taller than that. 33 with the base, of course. The smallest would probably be like, well, if you're excluding the Shisha Bucks Micro, which I do like that height for portability purposes.
Right.
I think like 21 or so, because those are more of those like those KM mini heights, and those are good for like desks and stuff.
Yeah.
So if I want something on the floor, 33, and if I want something on my desk, probably like 21, because it's easier to manage and it's not so obtrusive to my desk.
Yeah, that's fair. I usually go I like the height of the B2 with a single body. I think that's 28 inches. I don't know if that's stem width base or not. That's as high as I like to go.
Probably.
That's as high as I like to go. I'll go as small as the Regal, but then I use my mini pipes like my B2 Reaper, Morocco Mumbai, Trisha Bucks Mini. I mean, that's generally the height I like is like Regal, anywhere from between Regal Pine to or Regal Prince to B2 single body.
Yeah, Regal Prince is like 21.
Optimus on YouTube said traditional hookahs still have wider down stems compared to similarly priced modern hookahs. I would disagree. Well, Sheikah, yeah, I guess, but I would say Sheikah's comparable to like a B2 or a Regal, wouldn't you?
Yeah, because those were meant to be wider.
Right. They're literally made to be basically as wide as possible.
If you go any wider, it would be just kind of odd, and on top of that, it would be hard to be able to put a bowl on something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a topic for a different day. Darsh on YouTube says, been considering a Hookah for its aesthetics, but pretty concerned with the potential for ghosting. As far as ghosting goes, you're not going to have really any issues with ghosting. But Rob does say there are some issues, especially at 300 plus. He's had plenty of issues. There are some issues that you can have with it. I haven't had too many with mine. The most I can complain about mine is that I lost a little O-ring on the base of the downstem, and 2 of the rubber feet fell off of my base. But
I've heard that the Hookahs have issues with the wood. What's it called? What happens when the wood gets old?
Tarnishing? No.
No. It like eats away at the wood.
Rotting.
Rotting, yeah.
Really?
I've heard several people tell me that their Hookah is rotted already.
Jesus. Yeah, I can't say I've had any experience with that. But yeah, I think that's gonna about wrap it up from us today, guys. It's almost 10 here. So yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. You have any closing thoughts?
Well, I really hope we covered all of the major points when it comes to traditional and modern, and if you plan on buying either one of those two, we hope you make a good decision.
Yeah. Check us out the next 2 weeks. If you guys have any particular topics you want us to talk about, just drop us a line. You can drop it in the chats for the next few minutes. We'll see them. And also DM us on Discord, Reddit, Facebook, whatever.
Yeah, so if you want to find me on Facebook, you can add me. I'll gladly add you. My name is right there, Alex Leguizamon. And if you want to message me on Reddit, it's still on Sloth. And if you're in the Hookah Discord, then I'll definitely be able to talk to you there about that as well.
Yeah, and we didn't say it this time, but like we said last time, subscribe to us on YouTube if you're there. We're trying to hit 100 subscribers so we can get that custom channel name on our URL so it doesn't look like total dog shit when I'm telling people to come watch us. But yeah.
Yeah, come watch us at UC_MK blah blah.
Yeah. Yeah. Trying to get rid of that generic nonsense. Yeah, follow us on Twitch, subscribe to us on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Message us if you want to talk to us. I'm always open to talk about hookah stuff. I'm sure Wade is as well.
Yeah, I'm really bad about replying to messages, but
I'm pretty good at it. So, oh look, I already got a Facebook request.
Dank.
I'm popular.
Popping off, dude.
Anyway, it was nice talking to you all. I'm glad you guys tuned in. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Later, guys.